Hey, this is Allie, and I am back this month with another on-camera review of the books that I read this month. At this point in time, I've gotten through 3 books and didn't have a chance to do them immediately after, so I'm going to do them now. The first book that I read this month was called The Arrangement, and that was a book for my book club. And I thought it was actually a really great book to read for our book club because it resulted in a variety of really interesting discussions. The premise of the book is a couple people or a husband and wife deciding to try an open marriage. And you know from the beginning that it isn't going to work. This idea of the open marriage isn't going to work. But it's an interesting book. Like I said, lots to talk about. Lots of things to do with the characters, flaws, positives, negatives, those kinds of things. So I feel like it was, overall a decent book, very quick read. I think I read it while we were camping. Took me maybe a day and a half, like I said, very quick. But it was okay. The next book I read this month was from Book of the Month, and it was Cross Her Heart, which is a mystery book. And it is from the same author as Behind Her Eyes. For me, this one was just okay. It was another quick read, it actually started off slow and then it kind of shifted. There was something that happened that made it speed up quite a bit. I definitely didn't love it, and it definitely made me long for a different genre, I think is what I will say about that. Like, I've read lots of these kinds of suspense mysteries, and I generally like them because they're generally engaging and it's something that can take my mind off lots of other things. I usually go through them pretty quickly. Like I said, the beginning part of this one was really slow, but I don't usually stop reading a book. I know some people do that, but I just kind of push my way through. So, like I said, not awesome. Definitely made me kind of want to rethink the books that I am picking and maybe pick some different ones coming up in the future for Book of the Month and or other books that I'm reading as well. So it was okay. I would say that. And then the next book that I read is called Florida, and it's by Lauren Groff. And I actually picked this book up when I was in Nashville at a famous bookstore there called Parnassus, one of the last times that we were visiting. And this was one of the books that they had highlighted that she had visited there and done a book signing. Lauren Groff wrote a book called Fates and Furies that I read a couple years ago that I personally really liked. And this is a book of short stories. And this was the first time in probably, I don't even know how long, 20 years. I mean, it's been a really long time. I don't normally read short story anthologies. It's just not something that I generally go for. I'm usually reading, like I said, different kinds of other books. But I actually loved this book. Like, I thought it was great. It was super interesting. Her writing style is very, I guess I would say sophisticated, and I'm sure there's people that would argue one way or the other, but I really like her writing voice. It's rich. It's deep. It's, the stories that she tells are complicated and not simple. This is not a feel-good book necessarily, but one of the things that I really liked about it is as I read each story, I could find connections between the story, and one of the threads that seems to go throughout all of the stories is this idea of connection or disconnection from people, from places. Like I said, I really enjoy it. I definitely would recommend it if you're interested in short stories, or even if you think you're not interested in short stories, it might be worth checking out. I only picked it up because she had written this other book that I knew that I liked. And I wanted to buy a couple books when I was visiting that bookstore. But I actually feel like this one might be one that I would read again. And I don't have very many books that I feel that way about at all. But something about the format, I really liked like completing a story each night. Like, there was some satisfaction that came out of that piece of it. Definitely interesting characters, character development, even within those short stories. And then, of course, there were some that I liked better than others within all of the different short stories in there, but it was really good. So very glad I read this one. If I was going to recommend one of the books I read this month, this is the one that I would recommend. For sure. So I know that I'm going to start Beartown next. We are reading that for my book club for October. I may finish it before the end of September. I'm not sure yet. And I have picked my book of the month club selections, but I'll hop on here another day to talk about those. Hey guys, I am back with just one more book for the month of September. It's Beartown. It's very bright in here today. I finished it last night. I pretty much stayed in bed yesterday, had a cold, and was able to finish the rest of it. This is definitely going to be one of my favorite books of this year. It is a powerful book. It can be really hard to read in parts. It's about sports and competition and high school and parenting and sexual assault and all of these things and secrets and friendship and just it's everything all mixed into one book. And I will tell you guys that it took me a long time. Actually, this is a book that my local book club is reading, and I didn't really have any intention of reading this book. I read A Man Called Ove, which Frederick Bachman also wrote, and I liked that book, but I didn't love it. I know some people really loved that one, and it wasn't in the love category necessarily for me. So I never was super interested, even though I was hearing people talk about this book. And then one of the people in my local book club talked about it and really loved it. And, she's someone that I know personally, know and trust her ideas and recommendations and stuff. And so I read it, and it's an incredible book. The writing is, I think I would call it phenomenal, from lots of different characters' perspectives. He uses an interesting writing style in certain places where he says things like a wife is sitting doing this, or a husband is sitting doing this, and you're seeing all of the different emotions and different things that all of these characters are going through as you see all of these different sides of the story. Really, really, really good. So highly recommend it if you haven't read this. I would definitely encourage you to read this. Definite trigger warning regarding sexual assault. If that is something that is an issue for you, you should know that before you read this. If you, the sports aspect of it, I thought was super, super interesting too. The intensity of the sport, the intensity of the small town, just so much humanity in this book. So highly recommend it if you haven't. I know that there is a sequel or second book that has come out recently to this. I think it's called Us Against You or something like that. I have it on my Kindle, so I'm planning to read that one as well. My book of the month picks aren't here yet, so I can't show you. I got 2 books this month, so I'm not going to put them in the video because I'm not sure when they're actually going to arrive, and I want to be able to have this up as soon as I can. So thanks for listening. I hope you had a good month of reading in September, and here's to reading more.